Hello my lovely viewers and my dear students. Welcome to my math distance learning session. I'm Ms. Ruchika and I welcome you to today's session. In the session today we are going to be covering a new chapter which is probability and measurement for grade 9 and 10. And in the session today we are going to focus on the lesson representing sample space. Let's get started with the part 1 of probability and measurement, which will be useful for grade 9 and 10. In today's session, you will learn how to represent sample spaces in 3 different ways. So let's recall what is a sample space, and we have some vocabulary words, some new words which will be used throughout the lesson. So let's understand them one by one. The first word is experiment. So an experiment is a situation involving chance that leads to results called outcomes. So you know probability is a topic which deals with uncertainty. It is based on chance. So in that scenario, an experiment would be representing that situation where there is a chance that will lead to some results called outcomes. So for example, let me give you an example here. The tossing of a coin. So if you have a fair coin and you're tossing it, then that is called an experiment. And there can be different types of experiments as you would see in the lesson today. So next is your outcomes. This is the first word. Second is outcomes. So outcome is the result of a single performance trial of an experiment. For example, when you have the experiment of tossing the coin, there can be 2 outcomes which are possible. One can be the coin can land on heads. The other possible outcome can be it can land on tails. These are the 2 outcomes for the experiment. Third is event. An event is one or more outcomes of an experiment. So for example, out of this experiment where you are tossing a coin, you know that the total number of outcomes will be 2, or the possible outcomes which are head and tail. And out of that, if we select one event, or is there a particular event whose probability we need to find, then that such one event of the experiment will be the event that we are considering here. So for example, we want to find the probability that on tossing of that coin we are going to get a tail. So that the coin getting the tail is an event. It's an example of an event. And your sample space here is the set of all possible outcomes. So if in a question you have to write what is the sample space, then in a way you have to list all the possible outcomes of that experiment. So let's take the first example. In this you will see the first way in which you can represent the sample space. So let's read the question first. So there is one red token and one black token which is placed in a bag. A token is drawn and a color is recorded. It is then returned to the bag and a second draw is made. So the important point here is that this is a question on with replacement, because if you see, after you pick up the first token, you are then putting it back after noting the color. So the second draw is then made. What you have to do in this question, you have to represent the sample space. You have to write the way the sample space will be there for this experiment where you are taking out the tokens from the bag, and you have to do it in 3 ways. Number 1, you have to make an organized list. Number 2, you need to draw a table of the outcomes, and number 3, the tree diagram. So these are the 3 important ways in which you will represent. Let's begin with the first way, organized list. So what we do here, we are just listing what can be the possible outcomes. So you know that there is one red. I am representing it with capital R, and one black, so capital B. So either in both the draws, both red can come, or first red, then black. So this one represents the order. So first draw, you get red. Second draw, you get black. And this next one, both black, quite easy to understand, and then black followed by red. So these can be 4 possible outcomes which we have written or listed in an organized list. The second way of writing the same sample space is in the form of a table. So you know table has rows and columns. So we just list the elements in a more organized way in the form of rows and column. So the outcomes are going to be this is red and black. There are two options, again red and black, two options. We are dealing with the first row and the second row. Okay, so if in the first row you get red and in the second also red, then red and red is combination of the one possible outcome. If in the first row it is black and followed by red, then black and red. Similarly, first red then black, so this can be the option. If both are black, then this is the option. So what we have done, this is row 1. Maybe I can just change the color and write. So this is the first row, this is the second row, this is the first column, this is the second column. So in terms of rows and columns, we have listed them out in the form of an organized table. The third and the last way, which is in fact the most important way in which you can expect a question in exam, so there goes my star mark, is tree diagram. So as the name suggests, it is a tree kind of a looking image that you get when you are drawing it and writing the possible outcomes or the sample space. So in this one, it is an organized table again of line segments or branches which shows the possible experiments. So now this tree diagram can be vertical, it can be horizontal. In the screen here for this question, we are looking at a vertical tree diagram. So this is going from up to down. So what are the first options for the first row? There are two possible outcomes, red or black. Then for the second row, you have each option has again two sub options which are again red and black. So the first red can have either red or black, or the black can also have the same option. So how do you write your sample space? As in the last questions, it will have 4 possible outcomes and you just take up the options from here. So red and red gives you the first option, red and black gives you the second option, black and red gives you the third option, and black and black gives you the fourth option. So this is how the 4 outcomes are listed in the form of a vertical tree diagram. Okay, so let's try now a question from your book. We are going to solve it together. Again, we have to write the answer in all 3 representations we have seen. The first one, organized list. The second one, the table. And the third one, the tree diagram. So let's read what are the possible outcomes that are possible. So Hiam is a junior and has a choice for the next 2 years of either playing volleyball, so maybe we can denote that with capital V, or basketball, so capital B, during a winter quarter. And this is happening for the next 2 years, so you know there are going to be 2 stages where you have to make a choice. This person here, so he has a choice for the next 2 years either to play volleyball or basketball. Now I have 2 options. Either I can write V for both the draws, or I can write V1 V2 and B1 B2. So let's do the first representation, and in this representation we are going to write in the form of a organized list. Okay, so if I have to write an organized list, either V and V can be both options, or V and B, or B and B and B and B. So these are the 4 possible representations which are possible for the first part of organized list. Now the same thing you could also do in the form of a table. So if you are doing it in the form of a table, there has to be rows and columns. So the way you will write your outcomes, so you draw your columns, you draw your rows, and again it can have both the options. So I'm writing here B and B and B. So this is maybe for the first year, this option for the second year. So V comma V, because first year is V, second year is V, B comma V, B comma B, and B comma B. So same way we have just done, the only difference in this one is in the form of rows and columns. That's the second representation. The third and last way of representing is the tree diagram. So let's do that also. Now we are having two stages of choices. So when we are writing our sample space or we are writing the possible outcome, then in the first stage there are two options, either volleyball or basketball. And then for each subsequent stage you have two options again. So we can break it into two more branches. Now we can just write the outcome. So the first outcome will be VV, then VB, 1, 2, and if you want to change your color, third option and fourth option. So to summarize, the total sample space will have 4 possible outcomes, which will be V, 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 B, B, V, and B, B. So same sample space, just different way of representing or writing the sample. Okay, so now let me give you an important question. This is a multiple choice question. Let's see what is the correct answer. So Mariam has 1 blue. Let's highlight the important information. So she has 1 blue, 2 green and 3 red marbles in a bag. One by one she is picking out 3 marbles and placing them in the table next to each other. Which of the following is not an element of the sample space? So let's first draw the bag, a rough bag I'm drawing. 1 is blue, 2 is green and 3 red balls in that bag which Mariam has. So how many she is drawing? She is picking out 3 marbles. So out of these 3 marbles, if you look at the option A, B, C, the question is asking which one is not an element of the sample space. That means which one out of A, B, C and D cannot be the possible outcomes. So if you look at the options carefully, let's begin with the first one. So this is blue followed with red followed with blue. But if you look at the question, it's very easy to understand that there is only 1 blue. So this case where you have 2 blue is not possible. So we need not go further to check other options and we know our answer is going to be A. This is not possible since there is only 1 blue ball. So that's the correct one. There is only blue marble, which is 1 in the bag. Summarize what we've learned today. There are 3 ways that we've learned in the session where we can represent or write our sample space. The first is the organized list. Then you have the table, which is in the form of rows and column, and the tree diagram, which is in the form of branches and stages, and all the sample space are written in a stepwise order. Brings us to the end of the session. Please revise today's session and see you in the next class. Bye students.